What's up, everybody? Happy Super Tuesday. We doing it the Sexy Cigar Lounge style. Today, me and the big homie Rock, we're gonna be talking about the Texas governor election that's going on here in Texas between Greg Abbott, who's the incumbent, and Robert O'Rourke.
Hey
Better.
man, you know that name. You know that man name is Beto. He go by
That's what,
Beto, man.
that's what I was gonna say, but I said better known as Beto.
Oh, okay, okay,
So
all right.
so there's some
Put some respect on his nickname.
so there was many issues that govern us that we tend with here in Texas, and a lot of those issues was actually brought up during the debate. And let me also introduce y'all to the to my co-host for tonight. That's Rocky Miller, the owner of Slow Burn Waco and Prosperity uh, Tax Services. I happen to work with Rock. I won't disclose the agency or the employer that we work for, but we do work together. And let me tell y'all, Rock is a stand up dude. He does a lot in his community. One of the key events I know he hosts every year is the Feast in the East, in which he reaches out to the homeless and the less fortunate. Rock is a real dude, so I'm honored to have him on the show tonight. Rocket, you want to say anything to the people?
No, man, you earned that money. I paid you for the introduction, and I want to thank you for that fine introduction, man. It's my pleasure being here. I love politics and sports are two things that I definitely enjoy talking about, and so I was honored that you would ask me to come on and talk to you about
Oh, yeah.
uh, the gubernatorial debate and issues around the gubernatorial race between Beto O'Rourke and the incumbent Greg Hot Wheels Abbott.
Oh man, I mean, you're not going after a disability, are you? All
No,
right, all right. Well, I mean, we could jump on, we could jump right into it. And like I told everybody, we're gonna be talking about a wide range of issues, and if any of these issues trigger you, just let me know something in the chat. And I try to tone it down a tad. But I mean, I'm very passionate about the issues. I'm pretty sure Rock's gonna be very passionate about the issues. So just excuse our passion. We will try our best not to be disrespectful when it comes to the stuff that we say tonight. So I'm gonna share my screen and let me put that video up. All right, so what we're watching here is the debate that happens between the governor Abbott and Beto. I'm playing it from the beginning. What we're watching here is the debate that happens
hold on, let me mute my mic.
the governor Abbott and yeah, this is the debate that happened last week, and like I said, they're gonna talk about a wide range of different points. I fast forwarded past the moderators giving their deal on the rules and everything, so we're gonna hop right into the debate. And Rock, I'll be pausing the video through so we can give our commentary, but for the most part, we're gonna watch the debate together, and say let the people know how we feel as Texans about these issues that they're talking about. So let me get the video started.
And our viewers at home could hear your answers tonight. Let's get to it. Immigration. Immigration issues are especially relevant here in the Rio Grande Valley. For years, U.S. Customs and Border Protection has ranked it as the #1 area for migrants crossing illegally along the entire southwestern border. Many communities here have suffered enormous monetary costs. Governor Abbott, let's start with you, and you have 60 seconds with this question. What would you do to alleviate the financial burden placed on these communities?
We've been working to respond to the disaster caused by the Biden administration that has caused such an economic burden on these communities. Farms and ranches are run over, communities are disrupted, homes that are invaded. Remember this, just 2 years ago, we had one of the safest borders in decades, but under the Biden administration, we had more people coming across the border than ever in the history of our country. Texas has responded by making sure that we have the National Guard and DPS deployed where they're making arrests and turning back illegal immigrants, as well as what we're doing to help local communities by busing them from the area where Border Patrol is dropping them off to sanctuary cities in northeastern parts of the country. But what we're doing is making sure that we are keeping our community safe, and this is completely different than the way things would be under Beto, because he said months ago, there's no problem on the border. He said that he would reduce immigration enforcement. He even said that 95% of people come across the border illegally, he would allow to stay.
Okay, Mr. O'Rourke, I want to give you a chance to respond. And let me just repeat the question first for our viewers and for you. What would you do to alleviate the financial burden placed on border communities related to migrants crossing over? 60 seconds, please.
What we just heard from the governor is what we are likely to hear over the course of this debate. He's going to blame people like President Biden. He's going to try to lie about my record, and he's going to distract from his failures, whether it's his failure to keep the lights on in the grid, his failure to address school shootings, or his failure in immigration. We are 8 years into his time as governor, and this is what we have on our border. In fact, $4 billion into Operation Lone Star. We're seeing not fewer, but more encounters at our border right now. What we need is a safe, legal, orderly path for anyone who wants to come here to work, to join family, or to seek asylum. If you come to this country, we expect you to follow the law. But on our side, we're going to make sure that our laws reflect our values and our interests. And I'm going to work with local leaders, Republicans and Democrats alike, to make sure that we have a Texas-based guest worker program to alleviate shortages that we have in our state for labor demands and reduce inflation and address supply chain.
So, Rock, immigration, the migrants that's crossing the border. Um, so it looks like to me that Abbott wants to throw everything at the kitchen in the kitchen sink at the border, to stop them from coming over. He's done activated a lot of National Guard. He sent them down there now. He's big on securing the border. He think that these people cause that they're a problem, and we need to reduce the people coming across the border. And Beto has a whole different approach to it. He said claiming that the migrants are not the problem. We should implement programs into programs in which allow them to get their citizenship. I think he called it the new what he said it, but it was a program that he mentioned that he wants to implement to mitigate this issue. What you think about it?
So first off, neither one of them really answered the question. The question was basically what should we do to relieve some of the burden on the migrant of the local cities from the migrants and migrant communities that are in the state. So Abbott certainly didn't answer the question, and Beto O'Rourke gave a more convoluted answer that didn't address the specific issue. But I do think you got a very good contrast between what Governor Abbott's solution to the immigration problem is, and versus what candidate Beto O'Rourke's solution is to the immigrant program. I think Beto's solution is a more humane solution, and as Americans, I think that's the approach that we should take. We should take the approach of dealing with these individuals as people, not as pests. I believe that Abbott tries to treat these people like pests, as if you could spray Raid on them and get them to turn around and go the other way. And I don't think that's the way you deal with problems that are related to humans.
Right.
I know many people probably feel that way, but I don't. I think they're humans. They're dealing with real issues, real problems, and we have to address the migrant problem from the standpoint of why are they coming over here? What need are they looking for? Can that need be addressed in their home country? What can we do as a as a nation to address the need in their home country.
Right.
And then if they have a valid reason, if they have reason to seek asylum, work visa, so on and so forth, have a program that gives them a fair opportunity to achieve whatever their end goal is related to living or working in America. That's my, because this country, I know it's cliche to say, but this country was built by immigrants and migrants. Like,
Right.
you know, there are communities all over this country that were immigrant communities that literally built the United States. And I don't think we should turn away that legacy because the immigrants now are largely brown people.
Right.
We should give them the same opportunities that we gave the Irish, the Scottish, the Jews who came over from Europe when they were being persecuted. We should give these brown people the same opportunity that those communities were given in the
Right.
previous generation.
But like you said in your opening, you know, the neither one answered the question. So let's see. I'm gonna go back to the video and allow them to elaborate a little more on how they plan to tackle this issue.
Issues as well.
Thank you, Governor Abbott. You just heard your opponent talk about Operation Lone Star, and I have a follow-up question about that. About $4 billion in state funds has been directed to the Operation Lone Star Border Security Initiative. The program has seen its funding increase as recently as this past July. So the question, Governor, and 30 seconds if you can to answer this, should more money be allocated towards Operation Lone Star? And if so, Governor, how much?
Well, candidly, we shouldn't have to allocate any money for it because this is all because of Joe Biden's failure to do the president's job to secure the border. We're only having to do that because of Joe Biden's failure and because it would be the same pathway that Beto would take us down. Speaking of which, he talked about this guest worker program. He could have done that had he won the race for the Senate or won the race for president. That's not a job for governor. The job of governor is have to deal with the chaos caused by the Biden administration and its open border policies that Beto would replicate.
Just
what we have is chaos thanks to Governor Abbott right now.
Okay, let me give you 15 seconds to answer the question for me. How much money should be going toward Operation Lone Star?
And I'm telling you, $0 should be going to Operation Lone Star, and that's what it would be if we had a president who was enforcing the immigration laws of the United States of America.
Mr. Work, I want to go over to you 30 seconds for this question. It's the same one. Should more money be allocated towards Operation Lone Star?
No, it's clearly failed. The numbers are in. We're seeing not fewer but more engagements at our border. When the governor spent $4 billion of our tax dollars on what has turned out to be political theater for his political career, he promised us that it would deter people from coming to this country. We've only seen more people come. Now they get a bus ride to Chicago or Washington, D.C. or New York. We don't need any more stunts. We need solutions. We need those coming here to follow our laws. We need to make sure our laws follow our values.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. I'll give you 15 seconds, Governor.
Sure. So these are efforts to protect our state. There is a record amount of fentanyl coming across the border. This deadly. Texas law enforcement has seized
boogeyman.
To kill every man, woman, and child in the entire country, and this is because of Joe Biden's
Thank you,
policies.
Governor Abbott. I assure you, we have a lot of questions, a lot of topics to get to, and Steve has the next one.
Thank you, Sally, and thank you, gentlemen, for both being here tonight. Mr. O'Rourke.
So just on their follow-ups there, Rock, did you did you get any clarity on the, on their approach, how they want to tackle that issue, or
no, well, again, I don't think you got any details, but you got an idea of how each candidate would deal with the issue, or how each candidate is dealing. You know, again, I oppose the way that Governor Abbott is approaching the issue. He's approaching the issue as if just building a fence, building a wall is going to stop these people from coming over. These people are desperately want to be in America. I think we should provide an opportunity for those people to be in America legally, and we should do it in a way that the process can be expedited in some way and in a humane and dignified fashion for those people, right?
Yeah.
I don't think we should be in a situation where we're trying to create barriers to keep the people that want to come here and live alongside us as our neighbors and friends to not to be able to do that. I
So,
believe we should.
you think that and this is just me being devil's advocate. You think our local government could support the influx of people? I mean, just Texas alone, because I mean, if we're honest about it, we probably get the most migrants than any other state. Do you
Us in
think?
California, yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like we have the resources, in Texas, our local government to support this influx of people that coming in? And you're talking about coming off a pandemic, house market done season. I know that's where a lot of that work went, in construction and stuff like that. I mean, do we have the capacity to handle this influx of people that's coming in?
So to be honest with you, Brent, as a Texan and somebody who lives here and enjoys and absolutely loves living in Texas, we can't afford not to have those people come over and do some of the tasks to help us sustain our state. The fact of the matter is, whether it's
They've been instrumental.
construction, yeah, whether it's construction, whether it's working in the agricultural industry, we need those migrant workers, those immigrants to come over and help us not only feed and clothe and pump fuel or whatever, all the other jobs that they perform in the state of Texas, that ultimately the rest of the country benefits from. Right? Like, we literally need those people to do that. And we should have a dignified way in which they can come over, work and live next to us, and not make it a humiliating situation, and certainly not do what Governor Abbott is doing, is trying to treat them as a pest or a nuisance to
Right.
our communities. He went straight to one of the biggest Republican strategies anytime that we're talking about immigration, and he went to the immigration boogeyman, fentanyl. It was Donald Trump used racism. Rapists and murderers and the cartel and MS-13 and all those people. I don't see those people in my community. What I see is the people who also who clean our who happen to work in the food service industry, who work at lawn care services, who work in construction, and all these other places where you see a large number of what appear to be migrant workers or people from other countries, whether it be Mexico or Guatemala, Costa Rica, or wherever. These people are much needed in Texas, and I think for us to deny that fact, right, we're being a bit disingenuous in what Governor Abbott is doing is this political grandstanding to make the notion that these people are all bad for Texas.
All right. Well, let's continue with their follow up.
I want to continue with the immigration topic now. You've criticized the deployment of National Guard troops to the border. Here's a clip of you speaking at a March rally in College Station.
There are Guard members from Texas A&M who are on the border right now in Zapata and Webb and Hidalgo counties to go be part of a solution in search of a problem.
A solution in search of a problem. More recently, you told the Houston Chronicle that you will put some troops on the border as governor. In 60 seconds, can you explain why your view on deploying troops has seemingly changed when it comes to the border?
It hasn't. I've actually been to Zapata and Webb and Maverick counties and listened to these members of the Guard who had less than a week to say goodbye to their families and to their careers and into their communities to be part of the governor's political theater. Those aren't my words. Those are their words. So far, we've lost the lives of 8 Guard members. 4 of them have taken their lives, and 4 of them have died in questionable circumstances, none of whom, by the way, was killed by anybody coming in to this country. These Guard members say they have no powers to arrest or detain anybody. 10,000 Guard members, $4 billion, and it's been a complete failure, much as everything that the governor has done has been a failure for this state. What we need are solutions, not more stunts. Where we can have a strategic deployment on a voluntary basis for Guard members, let's do that. I've been consistent on that. Where we can partner with local sheriffs, with DPS troopers, let's do that. But we need to work on things like a Texas-based guest worker program to meet labor needs in our communities and ensure that our laws match our values.
Thank you, Mr. O'Rourke. Governor, I want to talk to you. You talked about migrants and the busing of migrants. Many migrant advocates and Democratic elected officials have expressed concerns about the treatment of migrants being bused from Texas to other states and cities. Here's New York Mayor Eric Adams talking about that just last week.
And when we reached out to Governor Abbott and stated, can we coordinate? Can we identify, who's traveling here, that we don't have to guess this? They refused to do so.
The White House has called this a political stunt. Governor Abbott, is this a political stunt? And has there been coordination with the states and cities these migrants are being taken to? And if not, why not? You have 60 seconds, sir.
So this operation began after meeting with local officials, sheriffs, mayors, police chiefs, and county judges, where they were overrun with the number of migrants that Border Patrol had dumped into their tiny little communities. They needed relief, and busing was one of the ways of providing them relief, and thus began the process of busing the migrants to cities that self-identified as sanctuary cities. Mayor Adams has never called my office, never talked to anybody in my administration, and so what he's saying is just flat out false. There has been communication between non-governmental organizations in Texas as well as the ultimate location, whether it be Washington, D.C. or New York. But going back to what Beto said, what you showed on video earlier was what happens throughout this entire campaign, where Beto continues to flip-flop on issue after issue after issue. He's flip-flopped on the border issue. He's flip-flopped on the energy issue, such as energy jobs and the Green New Deal. He's flip-flopped on defunding the police. Whether it's one issue or another, he keeps changing positions.
I want to be clear, though. You say that Mayor Adams has never called your office.
Correct.
Thank you. Mr. O'Rourke, I want to follow up on this. You've called the busing of migrants a political stunt as well. Why shouldn't sanctuary cities share the burden of what's happening on the Texas border? You have 30 seconds.
Look, I live on the border. No one cares more about the security and safety of the border than those who are raising our children there. I also serve as a city council member there. And in my time working with law enforcement, working with state and federal partners, we were able to help make El Paso, Texas, one of the safest cities in the United States of America. It's because we were looking at solutions instead of these stunts. I just want to remind everyone, this guy's been governor for 8 years, and this is where we are today. Some of the worst levels of engagement, encounters, fentanyl trafficking, and human smuggling that we've seen. That's the result of stunts instead of solutions.
Stick to the time, please. Thank you.
Steve, I've got to respond to what he just said.
Absolutely. I'll give you 15 seconds.
He mentioned El Paso. The fact of the matter is that El Paso mayor, a Democrat, the El Paso City Council, Democrats, they are now busing more people than the state of Texas is busing. And he's not calling them out for them busing people to other regions.
Different program. It is apples to oranges. And I'll tell you, this hateful rhetoric, this treating human beings as political pawns, talking about invasions in Texas, Texans defending themselves, that's how people get killed at the Walmart in El Paso. The gentleman in Hudspeth that we just learned about yesterday. This is incredibly dangerous for Texas and is not reflective of our values.
Okay.
So, Rock, the only thing I wanted to ask there, do you think that neighboring states should share the burden of these migrants that's coming in? Do you see it being reasonable that Greg Abbott had bus these migrants up and sent them to certain states and to utilize their programs for migrants that's coming in, or do you think that's not that's not it? Hey, Rock, I think you're on mute.
So thank you, Brent, for letting me know that. So I think it's not a viable solution. So you send a young man, young woman, family to New York, right? Without really understanding where they would like. They may not even be, their destination may not even be Texas. They may be going to Nebraska. They may be going to Minnesota. Who knows where they're going, right? And to just arbitrarily ship them to New York without addressing what their concerns were when they arrived here is utter. It's a stunt, and it's almost inhumane, right? If I'm a father and I've crossed the border and I want to go see my son in El Paso, right? And you put me on a bus to New York, and my destination is El Paso, then you put me that much further from seeing my son, at the end of the day, is that trip to New York going to stop me from seeing my son in El Paso?
Yeah. No.
No.
Yeah.
I'll be in El Paso. I'll be back in El Paso before the week's out.
Right.
So again, it's just political theater. You don't have any authority to keep that bus of people in the state of New York. So what are you fighting against?
Right. Right.
Again, it's an attempt to spray raid on a situation that need a real people solution rather than a pesticide or try to run people off.
Right.
These people coming over here with real issues. It could be medical, it could be family issues, it could be religious persecution, it could be political asylum. These people are coming over with real issues. No individual is going to have the same story or the same problem. We have to have a program that is willing to address those specific issues and then put those people in the appropriate program based on what their needs are. That's what's humane, in my opinion.
Right.
Trying to use a one size fits all method when dealing with people has never worked in the history of the world, and I don't think it's effective in this situation either.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there should be programs in neighboring states to help Texas out with that, but it shouldn't come at the cost of, they shouldn't be political pawns in which, they're, because I think it was also mentioned he was sending these migrants to Democratic states, Democratic cities, and I don't know, I thought that was pretty messed up, but I do think there should be some type of joint effort to deal with this issue from neighboring states. But I mean, not as a, I mean, I put myself in their shoes just to get on a bus
Hey,
and
hey, so let me ask you this: with problems in neighboring states, are you going to go up to Chicago and help get some of those guns out the hands of those gang members in Chicago? Do you want to send our police officers up there to deal with the problem that exists in Chicago? No, I
well,
don't want our officers to go somewhere and have to deal with that.
well,
And
well,
so
what
I think,
how I see it, Rock, is that like work programs that set up like in which it could be, you know, it, it could be a return for that state.
mhm,
There's programs set up to get these people, um, you know, um, on a path to citizenship. They're able to work. They're able to pay taxes. They're able to, be productive members of society. So I don't see that as a, I mean, I just hate that I just see it in a way where every migrant is in El Paso. Every migrant is in
mhm.
um, one of them southern cities down there by the border is getting overpopulated and so I just see it as some a joint
Well,
effort from the other states just to help out
so
with that issue.
I believe that immigration is not a Texas problem, right? I think immigration is a national problem, right? We should have a immigration policy in Texas and across the board that's in keeping with the values and the law that exists in America, right? But what's happening in this situation is that because of the political climate, right? Governor Abbott feels that it's his his responsibility to address the immigration problem with state resources and state funds rather than looking for a solution that can be supported by the Biden administration and let the Biden administration foot the bill.
Right.
He using our tax money, the money that could be going to our schools, the money could be going to our roads, the money could be lowering our property taxes. He's using that money to deal with the immigration problem because of his unwillingness
To
to
work with Joe
work
Biden.
with the Biden administration.
And
That's
to me, that's a constant theme as you go through the United States and take a look at some of these elections and the debates. it kind of gives you some insight on the political game that the governors are playing with the the federal leadership, and how when they're not the same party, how it becomes this tug of war match. So I think that the people who pay for that is the citizens of that state, and to me it's pretty unfortunate.
I
So
mean, literally, in a situation where property values are skyrocketing in the state of Texas, people are getting overwhelmed with property tax. He's elected to spend $4 billion on a program of taxpayer money, right, to deal with an immigration problem that's really a national problem. And
and,
so that,
yeah, and you
and
talk about political games. I mean, if what Beto is saying is true, sending National Guard members down there without even the authority to arrest or to, contain any of these people crossing the border, it just seems like some useless show of force. I mean, it's putting them in harm's way when it,
I,
yeah,
I've been deployed once in my life, Brent, and part of even when we get deployed in under wartime conditions, right? We even on the battlefield, there are humane ways of treating prisoners, right? And what do we end up doing? We end up feeding them, giving them resources so that they can sustain themselves while they're in our custody or under our supervision, right? And I believe you can do the same thing down there at the border and provide a certain standard of care, a certain level of care for those people who, while they're being properly processed. You got to understand, like that's the key. While they're being properly processed, and for whatever reason, Governor Abbott wants a political grandstand rather than process these people, find out what the issues are, understand why they're coming over to this country, relaying those issues to the federal government, and coming up with a solution that works for not only the federal government but also keeps the citizens of Texas safe
right,
and the people coming over here treated humanely. And so anyway,
yeah,
it's just a mess, man. It's absolutely a mess. And uh, you know,
yeah.
I believe we have a highly ineffective governor. Is one of the biggest problems with the immigration problem, um, but that's
Well,
where I stand with it.
we get back to the video.
Governor, I
Okay.
want to give you 30 seconds to respond to those charges.
Sure. I mean, it's clear that Beto just wants to perpetuate the open border policies and mischaracterize exactly what's going on. He refuses to acknowledge that the city of El Paso, because they are so overwhelmed by Joe Biden's open border policies, they too are having to bust migrants out of their communities because they have no way of keeping them there. That's what we're trying to do to help our local communities and make sure that we're going to lighten the load.
No one is for open borders, not the least of us who actually live on the borders. This is the kind of stunt that you get from Greg Abbott. We need solutions right now.
I want to go to a follow-up for you, Governor Abbott,
Sure.
and it's on the busing question. These migrants are being sent to states and cities with Democratic leadership. Why aren't these migrants being sent to so-called sanctuary cities in Republican-led states like New Orleans or Metro Atlanta? You have 30 seconds.
So again, because these cities of New York and Washington D.C. and Chicago are so large and have the infrastructure that's available, that they have the capability of accommodating the number of migrants that are being sent better than these other cities that you talked about. There will be other cities in the future that also will be on the receiving end of migrants, because we will continue to have to move migrants because Joe Biden continues to allow more illegal immigrants to come into the state of Texas.
Thank you, Governor. My colleague Gromer Jeffers has the next question.
Thank you, Steve, and hello, gentlemen. Good to see you both.
You too, Roman.
Let's pivot now to the topic of gun control. Following the Uvalde massacre, many community members made this one specific plea. Here's one student who survived the shooting at Robb Elementary.
You have to be 21 to buy a case of beer, but an 18-year-old bought a gun to kill kids. That does not make sense.
To be clear, that's a call to raise the age limit to buy an AR-15 style weapon from 18 to 21. A Republican governor in Florida broke with the NRA to sign this into law after the Parkland mass shooting. Governor Abbott, you say this can't be done in Texas. Mr. O'Rourke, you say it will be done if you're elected. Can you please explain your positions? Let's start with you, Governor Abbott. You have 60 seconds.
First, there's no reason why a little girl like that should ever have to say anything like that. There's a reason why these parents are angry, and they're rightfully angry. And I can feel their pain. No parent should lose a child, and we want to do everything we can to make sure that does not happen. We want to end school shootings, but we cannot do that by making false promises. It's a false promise to suggest that we can pass a law that will be upheld by the Constitution to raise the age, and here's why. The most recent federal court of appeals decision on this particular issue said that it was unconstitutional for a state to raise the age from 18 to 21 for a person to buy an AR-15. So any attempt to try to raise the age is going to be met with it being overturned. So we need to get to the bottom of what is really ailing our communities, and that is the mental health that is leading people to engage in school shootings. And Texas is already addressing that.
Just a quick follow-up, Governor. Take 15 seconds to answer this. You're a former Attorney General. You've never shied away from a legal fight. Are you against this proposal because you feel like it's unconstitutional, or you believe that it's unnecessary? You personally believe that it's unnecessary?
Purely from a legal position, based upon what that Court of Appeals decision ruled, and importantly, based upon what the Supreme Court decision said in a June opinion that changed the way that Parkland case was determined. I know how the Parkland case was determined. Florida is going to have its law overturned because of this new Supreme Court decision.
Thank you, Governor. Mr. O'Rourke, in 60 seconds, can you please explain your position on raising the age limit to purchase AR-15 style weapons?
First of all, I'm going to follow the lead of those families from Uvalde. That's who I'm doing this for. In fact, many of them drove more than 5 hours, 280 miles to be here today, even though they're not allowed in this theater because of the governor's conditions. But they want to hold him accountable because it's been 18 weeks since their kids have been killed, and not a thing has changed in this state to make it any less likely that any other child will meet the same fate. All we need is action, and the only person standing in our way is the governor of the state of Texas. In Florida, after the Parkland shootings, it was 23 days for that Republican governor to raise the age. And in those states where the age has been raised, mass shootings are down 80%. So yes, we can raise the age to 21. And as governor, I'll bring Republicans and Democrats around the table to do that. After all of these mass shootings, this governor has done nothing except make it easier for people who should not have a firearm to carry them publicly. And this is what we get as a result. We need change.
So, Rob, on the topic of gun control, on the topic of gun control, we seen what happened down there in South Texas. A gunman got into a school, and a lot of people got hurt. A lot of those kids got killed in that incident. Where you at on gun control? Do you feel like the age should be raised to 21 when it comes to this issue? What you think about that?
First off, I believe there's several measures that should be taken. One, I think the age of purchasing guns should be raised to 21 years old. I also think assault weapons should be banned, right? Assault weapons create an unsafe environment for our communities and in a lot of times put our police officers and first responders at a disadvantage, right? So I believe assault style weapons should be banned. And I also think there should be a national registry of handgun ownership, a national registry of handgun ownership. And so those are all what I would consider common sense approaches to gun safety. Some people say gun control. I say gun safety, right?
Yeah.
Because
So,
it takes a go ahead.
So, Rock, you feel like the everyday citizen should be limited to a handgun?
Yeah. Okay. So this is what I said.
You're saying assault style weapons.
Yes, I said assault. I would ban the purchase of assault style weapons by individuals, by just regular individuals. If you're a person who works in law enforcement, or if you own a security company, or if you are a security officer and you are responsible for protecting the compound or something like that, I do believe, of course, there should be some uh, exemption available, or a higher level license, right? But just Joe Smo turning 18 or 21 shouldn't be able to go down to and buy a AR-15 and a high capacity magazine where they can have over 100 rounds at their disposal. I think that's
Right. What would you
asinine.
say to the NRA member who said, you know what, the bad guys don't care about following the rules. The bad guys, they have their assault weapons, and when there's a home invasion and they kicking in my door, I want to be able to match their force. What would you say to that person?
So what I would say is I believe a handgun or even a shotgun of some sort is appropriate force to deal with most home invasions that occur. But the fact that you need a high capacity assault rifle in order to defend your home, I think that's unnecessary. And here's the reality, Brent. Here's the reality. The manufacturing and purchasing of those assault rifles often end up in the hands of the bad guys because the bad guys break in law-abiding citizens' homes and steal those very guns that they were meant to protect their property. And once those guns have been taken, right, you can't, there's no way for us to know that they'll be used for its intended purpose. So what I'm saying, the actual proliferation of those guns into society, they're bound to get in the hands of the bad guys, right?
Okay.
They're
Yeah.
bound to get in the hands of the bad guys. And so again, if they did not exist, if there was a limitation on their distribution, if you had to keep them in some type of armory or something. Again, Joe Smo, you know, you and I work, you know, you and I work around regular people all the time. And would you be okay with each one of those people walking around to work with an AR-15? You know, to be honest with you, it's not, though people may have the right to do something, it's not safe or expedient for them to do so. And
Right.
so I think we need to have a common sense approach to gun safety,
Right.
period.
Governor Abbott, the last time you ran for governor, we asked you about red flag laws. And those are laws which could stop an individual with potential intention to harm others from purchasing a gun. And you said about that quote, I would not support a red flag law that would take guns away from people without due process. Now, a lot has happened in those 4 years. Are you open to implementing red flag laws today? You have 30 seconds.
Well, let me tell you what I support and I don't support. What I support is making it a felony for someone to lie on a background check. I signed that into law last year. I approve of expanding background checks to include juvenile records.
You can't
Also,
make that
approve
up.
of making it for criminal gangs to buy or to possess a gun. But I'm still against red flag laws for the reason that it would deny a lawful Texas gun owner their constitutional right to due process.
Thank you, Governor. Mr. O'Rourke, you have been criticized at times for your positions on gun control, including this comment you made in 2019 while running for president.
Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47. We're not going to allow it to be used against our fellow Americans anymore.
But in February, you told reporters in Tyler that you were, quote, not interested in taking anything away from anyone. So which is it, Mr. O'Rourke? Are you for confiscating AR-15 style weapons or not? You have 30 seconds.
After losing 23 of my neighbors to somebody armed with a weapon of war, after talking to these families who could only identify their children in Uvalde by the shoes that they were wearing, it's clear to me that the only place that an AR-15 or an AK-47 makes sense is on a
Is
battlefield.
the battlefield.
As governor of the state of Texas, I need to be focused on what we can get done. Raising the minimum age of purchase to 21, we can get that done. A red flag law, we'll get that done. Universal background checks, we will get that done. We'll make progress and take action where this governor has failed.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. So just to be clear, yes or no, are you for confiscating AR-15 style weapons?
I'm for making sure that we make progress. Those families that I was just with from Uvalde want us to take action. This is the common ground. I've listened to Republicans and Democrats alike on this. We can agree on this much. Raise the age to 21.
Okay.
Red flag law and universal
Thank you,
background check.
Mr. O'Rourke. Steve has the next question.
Thank you, Gromer. We want to focus it.
I just want to do closing statements about the whole gun issue. Um, O'Rourke definitely said he wanted to raise the bar on getting guns. Abbott is it sounds like he's sticking with the status quo from how he been doing business already. Would you say Beto has a better plan for gun control or?
Well, of course. I mean, I think Beto is willing to do something, right? I don't think Beto is willing to do enough, but he's willing to do something. Whereas Governor Abbott wants, like you said it best, he wants to stick with the status quo and essentially do nothing. And it's funny to me that he's blaming it on his constitutional interpretation of the Second Amendment about when it comes to guns, but he is not. But when it came to abortion, he was willing to throw the constitutional interpretation of abortion laws
Right.
aside and pursue the banning, what is essentially a ban of all abortions in Texas. And so it's funny to me that this because we're talking about a real issue. We're talking about kids being killed in our community by a lone gunman in a building where there were, I don't know how many law enforcement officers at the time, and we're over here arguing about whether or not a crazy guy should be able to buy a gun, and our governor can't verbally say, hey, a person with a history of mental illness should not be allowed to purchase a gun.
Well, they shouldn't be lying on their application. You know what I mean? So if they do something crazy, best believe we're gonna attack that to the bill of them lying on their application. But yeah, right. I know a lot of people walk into the election booth and they already made their mind up.
Mhm.
But I feel like I'm one of those people that I just feel like government. I understand their role in society or whatever the case may be, and I think the more freedom you give people, to me, the better outcomes. And I just think when our freedoms are reduced in any sense, that would raise my eye. But I do see a need for gun control. I do understand how it could get in the wrong hands and something like the school shootings happen, but I don't know. I'm on the fence on this issue. You know what I mean? Because on one side
So,
I'm like, yeah, and
so Brent, and as a responsible gun owner yourself, right? Um, I think again, as a responsible gun owner, I don't think it. Are you safe with being in the presence of anybody having a firearm in arm's reach?
am I safe?
Do you feel safe with everyone having a
I
firearm
do feel
within
like
arm's reach?
having a firearm gives me a sense of security. I do
I no, I'm
feel.
not talking about you.
Uh
Are
huh.
you? Do you feel safe in the presence of everyone you come into contact with having a firearm within arm's reach? Right? Like you
No,
are a responsible gun owner.
I do feel like there's certain people who shouldn't own guns.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and that's what I'm saying, and I think that's what reasonable people will come to the conclusion.
Right.
Should I'm not a gun guy at all. Should my friend Brent be allowed to own a firearm? Absolutely. Should my friend Brent be allowed to own an assault rifle, provided he can qualify and has a reasonable either qualify, have proper training, or have a reasonable purpose for having an assault rifle should he have one? Absolutely, right? But I don't think if you're not willing to register, go through the proper training, so on and so forth, should Joe Citizen, you, or anybody else should be allowed to go down to your local 7-Eleven and purchase a freaking firearm or assault rifle. I think we should have standards. Britt, I can't purchase a car without a license, right? I can't. There's so many things that licenses are required, registrations are required, and with the power that a gun has, a person holding a gun has, I think there should be responsibility tied to it, and I think we make people accountable and responsible for requiring them to register and also have training, just the way we do with automobiles and motorcycles. I don't think it's unreasonable to require that.
A gunman killed 19 children and 2 adults. Its effects, though, go far beyond Uvalde. Mr. O'Rourke, I want you to speak to parents of victims and really all parents statewide worried about their children's safety at school. What would you do if elected to prevent this from happening again? You have 60 seconds.
Just like you, I'm a parent. With Amy, we're raising Ulysses and Molly and Henry in El Paso, and we are well aware that it's been 18 weeks, and this governor has not lifted a finger to make it any less likely that any of our kids will meet that same fate. We need change. The governor just talked about mental health care. We are dead last in the nation when it comes to mental health care access, and he took $211 million from the mental health care budget of the state of Texas. He'll talk about police funding. He failed to fund the police radios in Uvalde, even when that police department asked for them. And you know what? Those radios failed on that day. I want every parent out there to know that the lives of your children are more important to me than the NRA or any special interest or any other political consideration. I will prioritize them ahead of everything else, and we will take action and we will make progress. We'll bring Republicans, Democrats, independents alike together, and we'll get the job done where this governor has failed to do so.
Governor Abbott, to you now. The families of the victims, the Uvalde School District, the Uvalde County Commissioners, the Uvalde City Council all asked for you to call a special session in the wake of the tragedy. You did not, despite calling them on several other issues in the past. Can you explain why you didn't call a special session? You have 60 seconds.
I will, but I must first respond to what we have to respond to every single day. Beto's campaign continues to spew lies and false information. He said 2 things that are completely false. He said that we're last in mental health care. The fact of the matter is, Texas is now 27th in mental health care because of funding that I provided. Texas has provided more than $25 billion for mental health care in the last 3 sessions. He also said that we did not fund police radios in Uvalde. Completely false. We provided $1.6 million for Uvalde alone for their police radio systems since I've been governor. So Beto continues to provide false information. What I want to make sure that the leaders in Uvalde know is, as we've shown, we don't need to call a special session in order to take action. For 6 consecutive days after the shooting took place, I issued directives to make school safer and respond to the emergency in Uvalde. And then I remain engaged with the mayor, with the local leaders.
It could have been worse. That's what you told those families. That's what you told that community, and you've done nothing to help them.
Mr. O'Rourke, we're not done with this topic yet, so you will have your say. But Governor, I want to follow up with you. There's a regular session coming up in January. Will you make school safety an emergency item for lawmakers when they meet? You have 15 seconds.
Absolutely. Just like I did in past sessions. This is going to be an emergency item. Over the summer, I requested special legislative committees to begin working already so that they will have ready when we begin the session to address Uvalde, but the broader-based issue across the entire state of Texas.
It's an emergency,
as you
call
mentioned
special
earlier.
session now. Why wait till the next year?
Mr. O'Rourke, a question for you now.
Gun violence is the leading cause of death for children and teenagers in this state. Why are you waiting to save lives?
We've got a lot of topics we want to get to, but we want to stay on Uvalde because there's still some questions that we have here. So I appreciate you staying within your time. Mr. O'Rourke, Uvalde School District Police Chief Pete Arredondo, who led the initial law enforcement response at Robb Elementary, was fired. Is there anyone else who should be held accountable for the mistakes made in that hallway in Robb Elementary that day? You have 30 seconds.
The governor said it himself in an interview to Gromer Jeffers last month. There should be accountability up and down the ballot, beginning with Greg Abbott. I think he has the right to serve this state in the most important position of public trust. Furthermore, we know that there were 91 DPS troopers for whom he is responsible who were on the other side of an unlocked door, some for more than 70 minutes. There is a complete failure to hold people responsible accountable. Those families still do not have justice. As governor, I will make it my priority.
Thank you, Mr. O'Rourke. Governor, now to you.
There was it. Go ahead.
I'll give you 15 seconds if you want to respond to what
Well,
you said.
I was going to answer the question. I thought you were going to ask me. But...
I've got another question
Okay.
for you. Right after the shooting, you said this.
But the reality is, as horrible as what happened, it could have been worse.
You heartless motherfucker.
Yes. You heard Mr. O'Rourke bring it up. You later said you were misled about what happened inside Robb Elementary. If my memory serves me right, that was the day after. So we were just moments after what had happened. Who misled you, and will they be held accountable? You have 30 seconds.
Everyone in that briefing room that provided me the information about what law enforcement did, what that comment was based upon was information by law enforcement about all the children in all the other classrooms that they evacuated during the time when the shooter was on the campus. What they did not tell me at the time, however, was that there were dozens, if not more, of other law enforcement that were hanging around in the hallway for over an hour without engaging in the Columbine protocol and going in and immediately removing that shooter, which is what they were supposed to do. And because they failed to do that, there does need to be accountability, not just for Pete Arredondo, but also for local law enforcement. DPS officers are under investigation as we speak right now. There needs to be accountability for law enforcement at every level for not following the Columbine protocol.
You will be sure to.
You know, Rod, I just wanted to point this out in relation to that Uvalde situation. You know, they're talking about accountability. You know what I mean? And as insensitive as what Greg Abbott, Governor Abbott said, you know, with it could have been worse. It does seem like the ball was dropped. I mean, I'm one who believes that we have certain securities in place at the school level, at the city level, and it didn't seem it seemed like there was a lot of people who didn't do their job,
Yes.
and it could have reduced the amount of tragedy that took place that day. What you think about that?
Yeah, I definitely believe you're absolutely right. You know, we're almost conditioned and taught to trust law enforcement. We're taught to that their word is bond. Like what they say is the gospel.
Right.
And we learn time and time again that law enforcement, people in the law enforcement agencies will not only mislead the public, but in this case, they misled the governor, the highest state official in the country, in the state of Texas. So what this goes back to is why so often do they put the police in front of us as the picture and model of integrity when we know that under certain conditions they'll mislead the public, they'll mislead government, and they'll mislead the governor. And so in situations where when they do lie, when they do mislead the public, when they violate public trust, I believe there needs to be a swift and severe punishment for everyone involved. But time and time again, it's always very slow
People
to
slide
justice
through
when
the
it
cracks.
comes down.
Yeah.
When it comes to the police departments, it's slow. Justice moves extremely slow to the point in some cases often never happens. So again, this is so unfortunate as to what happened, and they should be punished. They should be fired. They should be held accountable for what happened that day. But I have doubt that they ever will, considering what has happened in the past related to law enforcement.
All right, and Rock, I know we're at the top of the hour. I ain't gonna try to take up too much of your time. I'm gonna try to get one more issue in there, and
Okay.
yeah, just bear with me.
Okay, cool.
Troopers accountable.
So, yes, in a word, yes. But second, there are at least 7 who are under investigation as we speak right now, 2 of whom are on suspension as we speak right now. And so I expect DPS officers and law enforcement across the state to follow the Columbine protocol.
Governor, the buck stops on your desk. You blame everyone else. You blame Joe Biden for other issues.
We need to move on.
You
we
blame
need to move
people
on
for misleading
topics.
you.
And actually,
You are misleading this state.
Sally will ask the next question.
I do, and I think you're both going to want to talk about this next topic. It's the topic of abortion. A recent Next Star, Emerson College, and the Hill poll shows more than half of those polled say they are more likely to vote in this election because of the overturning of Roe versus Wade. You both are very outspoken on this issue, but what I want to do tonight is really drill down on specifics. Governor Abbott, you recently sat down with my friend Gromer over here, and you talked about what women can do if they are victims of rape or incest. And here's a clip of that interview.
Those victims can access health care immediately, as well as to report it. Both of those have very meaningful consequences. By accessing health care immediately, they can get the Plan B pill that can prevent a pregnancy from occurring in the first place.
Some healthcare advocates say emergency contraception like Plan B is often unavailable, or it's too costly for women to afford. And trauma could prevent them from taking emergency contraception in the time frame that it's effective. So, Governor, we're going to start with you. With these concerns that I just laid out, is emergency contraception a viable alternative to abortion for victims of rape and incest? And you have 60 seconds, sir.
So to directly answer the topics that you raised, on the availability of it, it's incumbent upon the state of Texas to make sure that it is readily available. For those who are victims of sexual assault or survivors of sexual assault, the state of Texas pays for that, whether it be at a hospital, at a clinic, or for someone who gets a prescription because of it. And so not only should be readily available, but the state of Texas is going to pay for it to make sure that it is available for them.
But Governor, 30 seconds, or I'll give you 30 seconds to answer this one. I still want to know, is Plan B the alternative when it comes to somebody who is pregnant from rape or incest?
Well, it depends on what you mean by alternative. An alternative, obviously, is to do what we can to assist and aid the victim, and that is to help get them medical assistance that they need and the care that they need, but also to know what their options are. They're going to know that the state, through our Alternatives to Abortion program, provides living assistance, baby supplies, all kinds of things that can help them. Also, we've increased funding for prenatal and postpartum care.
Thank you, Governor. Mr. O'Rourke, we're going to stay on the topic of abortion here. Governor Abbott has said that you support abortion on demand. Do you support any limit on when a woman can have an abortion? 60 seconds for this question.
This election is about reproductive freedom. If you care about this, you need to turn out and vote. I will fight to make sure that every woman in Texas can make her own decisions about her own body, her own future, and her own health care. And I will work with the legislature and my fellow Texans to return us to the standard that Texas women won in the first place, Roe versus Wade. That's the standard that answers your question. But I've got to respond to this silliness on Plan B, this comment he made about eliminating rape in the state of Texas. This is an attack on women. More women have been raped in the state of Texas than any other state. There are 3,000 untested rape kits at DPS headquarters, meaning that our ability to bring rapists to justice has declined by half on this governor's watch. And it's arguable that rapists enjoy more victims because more rights under Greg Abbott than their victims do, because they can sue the families of their victims if they help their victim get an abortion and be able to win a $10,000 bounty in the process.
Thank you. Mr. O'Rourke, I'll give you a chance to respond, Governor. 30 seconds.
So once again, doing this a lot, I have to point out a misstatement by Beto. I signed a law that eliminated the rape kit test backlog at the Texas Department of Public Safety. As it concerns abortion, listen, Betzel's position is the most extreme because he not only supports abortion of a fully developed child to the very last second before birth, he's even against providing medical care for a baby who survives an abortion. He is for unlimited abortion at taxpayer expense.
That's not true. It's completely a lie. I never said that, and no one thinks that in the state of Texas. He's saying this because he signed the most extreme abortion ban in America. No exception for rape, no exception for incest. It begins at conception, and it's taking place in a state that is at the epicenter of a maternal mortality crisis, thanks to Greg Abbott, 3 times as deadly for Black women. I will fight to make sure that every woman makes her own decisions about her own body, her own future, and her own health care. That's what most of us, Republicans and Democrats in this state, believe.
Mr. Ward, just 15 seconds. Is there a limit that you support on women getting an abortion?
That limit was decided in 1973 through a victory that Jane Roe and Linda Coffey and Sarah Weddington won before an all-male United States Supreme Court. I want us to return to that. It was the law of the land for nearly 50 years until we had the most extreme abortion ban in the country.
Gromer has the next question.
Thanks, Sally. Let's move to law enforcement.
All right, so Rock, this will be the last topic we talk about, and it looks like this. I mean, going by the the percentage we saw of the people who are planning to vote, going out there to vote, just based on this issue. You know, I mean, we know in the last year or so that the Roe versus Wade got overturned in the Supreme Court, giving the authority to the state. You know, so I say this is one of those make or break issues for these two, for the governor and the candidate O'Rourke. You know, let me start by saying I'm a pro-life type of guy. However, I could not excuse the I mean, in Greg Abbott, you know, I understand the level of content, complacement that could come with being in power for too long, but the insensitive comments to say that a person who has been raped, when they're trying to process what even happened to them, some women to go weeks without before they, you know, talk to any law authority or anything like that, to have to have it in them to go, you know, do it immediately, just so they get a Plan B pill. You know, I felt like that
Yeah.
was very insensitive and not any compassion for the victim. It's almost like protecting the raper, you know, the rapist. You know what I mean? And I just
So yeah, I completely agree with you, Brent. I mean, the level of insensitivity that he has toward that he shows toward women who may have been raped or gotten pregnant due to rape or incest is unfathomable to me. And so, um, again, I just think, you know, this guy is out of touch, and hopefully soon he'll be out of office because we we care about our women in our community, and our women deserve the right to seek a a proper termination of a pregnancy that happened under the circumstances of rape or incest. I also believe a woman should have the right to seek a termination of pregnancy for any reason she feels appropriate within prior to 16 weeks. And so and I think that has been the law for some time, and that should be continue to be the law. You know, I know I can respect someone's opinion about them being pro-life and thinking abortion is wrong, right? I can respect that. But what I don't think is appropriate is for men who will never be pregnant deciding what a woman should do with her body. And
yeah,
this law that was recently passed is absolutely doing that. It's deciding whether or not a woman should actually have an abortion or
right.
not, and that's not a role of a man. We should leave that up to women, their God, to decide whether it's right or wrong.
And Rock, my whole pro-life stance is just from my own experiences, and I mentioned this before, but it's just I've come in contact with many women during that time in which they had an unexpected pregnancy, a pregnancy in which they wasn't married, and a lot of women were faced. Those women were faced with hard choices. You know what I mean? And I could all, just from the conversations I had with them, they were always leaning toward having a baby. And what kind of like swayed their decision was that they would either not in the proper situation, didn't have the resources available. The guy who they were with probably, he didn't have nothing to do with them. So it just made that choice, to me, it just swayed them to that decision a lot easier. And I always felt like just pouring, if we, rather than pouring resources in certain agencies or whatever, make it, and you gave me your insight on this, and I agree with it. Make certain, policies in regards to helping these women during that time, providing the resources for them, giving them giving them giving these women the sense of comfort that they don't have, once they have a baby, they don't have to rush back to work, they don't have to make any haste decisions after they have their baby, and they can enjoy motherhood a little bit. I think if those things were in place, there'd be less abortions, and I think the problem will take care of itself almost. But
Uh, I completely agree. I'm sorry about that. I had
no,
my
you're
light
fine.
my light go out, but I completely agree, Brent. I think as we should provide more support if we want to curtail the number of abortions that occur in this country. We should give women the resources to care and provide for those children that happen to be born of inconvenience, if you want to say that, right? If it's not a health issue, it's not an issue where the child will be born with a deformity or something like that. Then we should make it more affordable and more comfortable for a mother who is with a young child. And
Right.
and I have no problem as a man saying that the benefits that are related to uh, bringing a child in this world and caring for a child should be tied to that woman that gives birth.
Right.
Period. Point blank. And that should be separate than any other support that she may receive from the father or her husband, because we know in certain situations that support can be conditional, right?
Yeah.
Can be held over a woman's head, can be made quite unpleasant. We should
Right.
not have any woman having to live under those circumstances in America, and she should be given the dignity to order to say, "Hey, we're going to care for this child. We're going to make sure this child is cared for. Give her the time off, whatever, so that she can provide, so that she can care for the child, feed the child, provide a adequate housing for the child, so on and so forth during those 2 years where the child where it's very important that the mother and the child bond, and it gives the child the best opportunity to have a good and healthy life, man.
Yeah. Well, hey, Rock, I just want to thank you for coming on the show tonight, giving us your insight. Like I say, this is Rocky Miller. He does a lot in the community for Waco, Central Texas. He's the owner of Slow Burn Waco, also Prosperity Tax
Tax,
Services.
yep.
Yeah, Rock is a good source for those services. And Rock, do you have any closing remarks you would
No,
like to?
no, man, it's my pleasure being on with you, man. We definitely have to do this again, Brent.
Right.
Just let me know. Like I say, there's many things, many topics we can cover. This gubernatorial race is coming down to the wire, and it was my pleasure coming on to talk
Right.
talk with you about it. And I suggest everybody go out and vote.
Right. And you know, and Rock, I'm glad you mentioned voting. This is just my attempt to give my fellow Texans something to think about as they head to the voting booths, or if they were not thinking about voting. Maybe some of these issues are pertain to them or affect them in some way, and it may motivate them to go out there and vote. I know there's usually a big undecided population, and they make their decision right there in the voters booth. So I this is my whole goal was just to motivate my future Texans to get involved in your local government, and it's your right. It's your right to vote, and to me, if we don't use our rights, they eventually get taken away. So thank you again, Rock. Shout out to Slow Burn, Waco, and Prosperity Tax. Shout out to Six Cigar Lounge. You can talk to us each and every day. Rock he's one of the regulars in there. I'm one of the regulars in there. We talk about interesting topics each and every day in the Six Cigar Lounge on Clubhouse. Follow us on all social media platforms. Thank you for joining us tonight, everybody who's decided to join. If you watch this video, consider some of the things me and Rock talked about. Um, I close out by saying my name is Saint underscore Brent on all social media platforms. Hit me up on Clubhouse, Instagram, Facebook, whatever social media platform you're on. I'm probably on it. Thank you for joining the Sexy Cigar Lounge tonight. And we're going to close and have a good night. Be safe and God bless.
Welcome to the Sexy Cigar Lounge. Please like, comment, and subscribe.